Welcome to another episode of Dave's Imaginations. Today we're going to take a look at the Mostarle Nebulipedes. In this video we're going to go through thoughts on assembly, what went well, what didn't go so well, and touch on some specific warnings, and then I'll preview some of my upcoming videos. Stay with me. I got this bad boy, this Mostarle Nebulipedes metallic model. This was a gift. This Mostarle gave this to me after I had done a video for their cyberpunk spider model, and I had done a previous video on that. And in recognition and appreciation for that video, they gave me this. And if I did a video, then they'd appreciate it. But there was no obligation, but I was happy to, and I built it, and here it is. And this video, we're going to talk about my thoughts on building this model. Pretty cool, and all in all, I'm pretty happy with it at the end. But I'm going to go through future videos. I'm going to go through the entire process and everything I went through to build this. A disclaimer, I am not a professional model builder. This is the second one I ever did. When I did this, it takes me quite a while. I fidget, and the videos I'm going to produce in the future, they're pretty raw. I show you some of the headaches. I talk about the headaches I go through in building this. It is not an easy model. In previous videos, I say you need to be 13 and up to do this. And I think it does. It would take a very special 13-year-old to do this. Teenagers would probably, the younger you're, more likely you're going to pull out your hair and you're going to have a lot of complaining kids. And it would take a lot of parent supervision and interaction. So it could be done by a special kid, but it takes a special adult to build these. There's a lot of patience. There's a lot of fidgety. These parts are tiny and can be exasperating to put this model together. But in the end, once you push through that and the struggle is real, but the accomplishment is also real. I think it ended up pretty well in the end. How long? So the model took me about, I'm guessing, between 10 and 12 hours to put this thing together. Again, I'm not a professional. I don't do this every day. So it took me a little longer than some people might, but I expect a lot of you don't build a lot of these. So I'm guessing it's going to take 10 and 12 hours for you to assemble it. Now, I also included taking video clips of the build process along the way. So it took me a little longer because of that. Some general tips. It's very important that you have a nice wide open space. A table, your kitchen table would probably work. However, I recommend having some sort of mat down because these parts are tiny, they're metallic, and they can bounce. If you drop something, they're going to bounce around. Keeping things organized is also very important. It comes with many, many bags, 100 bags, a lot. And to have them laid out kind of alphabetical, that's what I did. As you might have saw in my previous video, I lay out all the bags kind of alphabetical. So as the guide asks you to gather parts, you can go over and find those parts pretty. There was at least a couple times it's like, where do the parts go? And I was thankful that I could just figure it out looking in my collection of bags, that I could figure out where those parts were. This model can be exasperating. Allow yourself breaks and permission to set it aside for a day or two. You get to a point where you just don't think you can do it. It really helps to just step away, walk away, collect yourself, and let your brain work on it in the background. And then the next time you come back, most of them, well, I was able to figure out. Ultimately, I was able to figure out, and I got the thing assembled. One other thing, though, allow yourself to not be perfect. You see the ads for burger, or the Big Mac, and it looks beautiful. But then you go to McDonald's, it doesn't look like that. It's going to be the same thing for this, right? As you put this thing together, you're not going to be able to build it perfect as it looks in the instruction manual. So allow yourself to not be perfect. Good enough is still really pretty good. So take a little stress off and allow yourself to not be perfect. Now, having said that, into some of my specific warnings. As you build this thing, you absolutely want to double check the orientation of your pieces. Right away in my first step, I put the magnet on backwards. There's a magnet that has a little concave spot, and I didn't notice it, and I put it on backwards. I didn't notice it until like amongst the last steps of the build, and then I had to go back and I had to take it apart and put it back together. That happens all the time. All right. So again, allow yourself not to be perfect. Accept this is going to happen, but still a little warning in advance. It does happen. Knowing that in advance, you can pay attention to not just what parts are in the assembly, but also the orientation of the parts. Another step, I had put on a bracket. The bracket was backwards. I had to go back and take it off and put it back together. It happens. It adds time to the overall build process. These parts, these assemblies, they're tedious. They're very specific. Now, those putting on something backwards is not something you can just live with. You got to take it apart. You can put it back together. But you can do it. You can do it. All right. So that's orientation parts. But then also make sure you have all the parts that need to be in something. There's a number of times I put something together and then get a step or two down. Then I miss a decorative piece. Oy. So you have to go back. Well, but for those, maybe you don't have to. But I did. I went back and took them apart, added a decorative piece, and went on with my assembly. That again, it's exasperating to realize you missed some piece in the assembly. Sometimes they're vital. Sometimes they're not. It does happen. So allow yourself, acknowledge, okay, this is going to happen. And what are you going to? You can go back and do it. I did. I hope you would too. In the next sections, I'm going to talk about what went well and what went wrong. But starting with what went wrong, in one of the steps, I was tightening it. And there's always this balance of, are you going to tighten it too tight or not tight enough? So things, if you don't tighten it up, things get all wobbly and loose. You don't want that. But if you do it too tight, and this is what went wrong, I tightened it too tight and one of the heads of the bolts just popped right off. Oh, and then the whole thing just fell apart. And I tell you, that is also very exasperating because you spend sometimes the balancing, this feats of dexterity to balance these parts just right, to get it hand just right, and then screw it on. It could be very tedious, and you finally get it right, and you're tightening it, and you want it to be tight, but then over tightened it, and the screw head just popped right off. Also, one of the steps is when you're building the magnets, it warns you, do not over tighten the magnet. You could break it. Now, I didn't break a magnet because I over tightened it. At least I don't think so. I tightened it and I had it sitting on my table, and they're magnets, so they attract each other. And when they attract each other, it went boom, and one of the magnets broke when those magnets collapsed together. Thankfully, they do have one extra magnet. At least in this kit I got, I had one extra magnet, and I was able to fix it. And I was able to put it on, and I was okay. But if I broke two, then I'd be one less magnet in my model. Now, they do have a customer support line you can call and get extra parts. I have not done that. I see it there. I have interacted with Mostarle a little bit. The guy I spoke with seemed very, very easy to work with, but I have not called upon them to replace a part or send something that was missing, which kind of leads into the next thing that went wrong. A couple of things that went wrong. The fiber optics. Right in the instruction, it tells you be very gentle with the fiber. That is the LED strip lights that go on the bottom side of the model. And I don't know if you can see this. The blue one is good. The reddish pink one, I broke it. Right, very easily. It came attached from its power supply, and I don't know how to fix that. Could I call them for support and get another one? Probably, but I know I broke that one, and so I don't feel good about it. And even with the blue, it still looks pretty good with just the blue. It does. I do wish I had the other one, but I don't think it's going to be worth my effort to get that replaced. The other thing that went wrong was the eye. So one of the eyes are actually LEDs. One of them worked, the other one didn't. I think that's Mostarle, and I think I could rightfully request a new eye, and they would probably send it to me. I haven't, and I don't know if it's worth it. It's kind of cool with just one eye still. That broke. That didn't go so well. That one's on Mostarle, though. The LED strip is on me. The magnet breaking, that was on me. Oh, the magnets. You put magnets across the bottom. I don't know if you can see there. They do flop around a little bit, just a little bit, and it is these magnets that allow you to stick this. I was very excited to get this and put it against my refrigerator. But I gotta say, this whole assembly is pretty heavy. The magnets didn't support it. And it's partially because these legs. Oh, you see here, I'm missing a claw. Another tip, tighten and retighten, as I seem to be missing one of the claws off my feet. But I digress. Back to the magnets on the refrigerator. These magnets don't make a good contact to the level surface because of the orientation of the legs. Now, I could probably bend those legs out a little bit more and get a better contact, but I'm not completely convinced it would still be strong enough. The magnets would be strong enough for for it to support this model on the side of the refrigerator. They show it on their preview images, and it seemed to work there. So maybe you would be better at it than I was. So those are some of the things that went wrong. Well, I debate a lot of times as I go through building this if 2 pliers would work, and I did use 2 pliers. These parts are tiny. My hands aren't huge, but they're big man hands, I guess. And as you tighten those bolts and nuts to the bolt screws, it can be tedious. And getting them in just the tiny little spots, it can be hard. So getting an extra set of needle nose pliers could be helpful. Other people have talked about using tweezers. I never used tweezers. Never used them for this model. Did, however, use a toothpick. Occasionally, I would get a toothpick, and I was able to set the bolt on top of the nut and just barely touch it with that toothpick to get it to move. And once you get one thread on, you're golden. Then you can get the needle nose pliers on there, and you can twist it, or the Phillips screwdriver to screw it up. Pliers, tweezers. Occasionally I think a nut driver would be nice. I've not done it. Maybe if you find a nut driver that can fit those tiny little nuts, that'd be pretty cool. If you do, let me know. I'd be interested in seeing that. I haven't tried it. If you did, let me know how it worked for you. That process is tedious, but it did go okay. There was a couple steps perhaps, that I used poster tacky, and I made myself a wad of poster tack about the size of a pea, and then I could set a bolt on top of that, and I could build assembly on top of it. And for that stuff, and you'll see it in my future video, that did work very well. At least it worked well for those couple steps. So in the end, despite all those foibles, I am very happy with how this thing turned out. Even with one less fiber optic strip, the blue lighting underneath still looks really cool. The magnetic head, it's pretty cool that you can snaps on there. It's nice that it's a little bit poiseable. You can poise it. And in the end, I think it turned out really neat. Really neat. So that is my Mostarle Nebulipedes metallic model. One more thing that went well, and to pay attention to, is when assembling the fiber optics. So as I go through this, when you come to the point of the steps where you add the fiber optics to the underbelly of this Nebulipedes, I push that step. I did it the first time, and I said, you know what? I don't like how this is going. And you'll see this in a future video. I stop it, I take it off, and I save that step for very close to the end. When I do end up doing it, I use some oil to get that fiber optic to go through the tube. That really helped. That is another thing that went really well. So, upcoming videos. I have 4 videos. I broke up this process, the build of this model, into 4 videos, breaking up the steps. So the first video is the head assembly, and that's steps 1 through 13. The second video is the legs and the vertebrae, and that's steps 14 through 38. Third video is legs, attaching the legs and the back spikes to the vertebrae. That's steps 39 through 79. And then the fourth video and the final video, I add the magnets. I circle back and add the fiber optics. And then I give some final thoughts and reactions. You'll see the video is as I see it, as I plug it in for this first time, that reaction to it lighting up. And then I give the final thoughts. And that's all within, at the end of steps 80 through 88, and then the completion of a couple skip steps. So those are the 4 videos. At the beginning of each of those videos, I have added additional video, just giving some tips and tricks and warnings, just giving some thoughts on what I went through, what needs to be done, tips and tricks to assemble those steps in each of those videos. So each video will have tips and tricks at the beginning of the video. Then I go through the assembly process where I pull out all the parts, I lay them out, I have the video of me fidgeting with it, which now forgive me a little bit because you have a top-down video and you just see my hands. A lot of times you're going to see, you can't see exactly what I do because my hand, the camera is coming down in my hands and you can't see it. But I do show you the parts. I talk through the assembly of the parts, and then I show the after that part or that step is completed, I show that step, the piece that I created. So hopefully you can glean something out of that that can be useful to help you as you build it. But that's going to be That's going to be in the future videos as I go through each of those steps. Now, I'll also say that in a lot of these steps, they're circular processes. You have a group of steps that will become a subassembly, and then you have to go through those steps a number of times. I call those circular processes. Those repetitive steps, I'll do the first one, and I'll show you everything I do to do it, but then when the repetitive, I do off camera. I show you before and after. You'll see, hopefully you'll be able to find something in there that can help you out. So let me know, are you building one? Have you built one? Please leave your tips. I'm not making money off this video, right? This is all for me to try and help you out, maybe make something easier for you. And so I would ask you, I would ask you, please leave some tips and thoughts in the comments so other people can see what you went through and how you handled stuff. And I would appreciate it, and I'm sure they would appreciate it too. So if you would, leave your tips and tricks in the comments. Also, if you wouldn't mind, hit that like and subscribe if you haven't. And I hope you'll check out my future videos. I hope they help you out. And until next time, take care.